do I think Bailey Zappe was better than Mac Jones in the present? Yes, absolutely. I think that he was slightly better. I think he made some plays, something that we haven't seen in a while from the quarterback position.
All right, I think Greg got his pellet stove issues figured out. Hopefully, we're now ready for the podcast on this Tuesday, getting you ready for the Steelers game and also talk about what we saw on Sunday against the Chargers, unfortunately. But before we get into all of it, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. Let's start with Rhamondre Stevenson, Greg. We found out high ankle sprain, likely out multiple weeks. My take on this, shut him down. See you in 2024. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. It was an unfortunate play that happened on. I'm sure Michael Wenu feels a little bit bad considering he whiffed on the block. But, we saw it was one of those hip drop tackles that I think I think the NFL is going to make some serious changes with that. How they are going to officiate it, how they're going to coach it. We'll have to see. I'm sure that will be a big debate around the owners' meetings in March. But this is another example of a really good NFL player being lost to these guys, just grabbing these guys around the hip and then falling on their legs. And it seems like every week we see this. And I totally agree with you. No point at 2-10 for him to come back. It just further illustrates sort of the roster problems on offense that this team has, that there aren't any real good options. I think Kevin Harris is on the practice squad. There might be somebody else. I don't know. But again, another offensive position that's not a priority for Bill Belichick. The Patriots are shorthanded. It's going to be Zeke the rest of the way. I hope to God we don't see Ty Montgomery getting any more carries out of the back. That was one of the worst 2-yard runs I've ever seen in my life. It looked like me coming home from the grocery store with a bunch of stuff, just trying to get in the door. That's basically what it was. And I mean, he had 2 arms around the ball and then just sort of shuffled where if he hit the hole hard, there could have been 5 or 6 yards there. And, he just pitter pattered his way to a whole 2 yards. So, God forbid we have to watch that. That would only add to the awesome offensive display that we're going to get on Thursday night if they run Ty Montgomery out there. But, unfortunate because Rhamondre, he was just starting to hit his stride.
Yeah.
The offensive line was starting to run block better.
Yep.
I think if he lasts that whole game, he might have carried the Patriots offense to a victory by himself. Just the way he's been running, the way he looked early in that game, how they were feeding him. It was sort of beast mode Rhamondre, and then poof, he's gone.
No idea why Ty Montgomery is on this roster. He's now not even returning kickoffs. Jalen Reagor was out there returning kicks on Sunday. Does he have pictures on Belichick? I don't know why Ty Montgomery continues to make money and suck up a roster spot. He literally does nothing for this football team. He stands there and does this on the kickoffs. Arms extended for people not watching. That's all. Fair catch. That's it. That's all he does. You know what? I'm currently unemployed. Bill, if you're looking to pay $50,000 for the rest of the year, you'll save money. It'll be great. You can tell Kraft you're saving money. Get a uniform on me, and I promise you I can stand on the 5-yard line and extend my arms when the ball sails over my head. I can do it.
Dude, and Nicky Cattles hits the hole hard, too.
Let's get to Bill. He got his took us all worked up in a bunch on Sunday. He got skewered by the media, Greg. Mike Reese went at him pretty hard. Phil Perry had a back and forth, which seems to be, the rite of passage every Sunday now. Mike Giardi also got into it a little bit with Bill. It was not a very pleasant postgame, and Bill wrapped it up by just walking off. Mm-hmm. And I believe Stacey James, who is the master of communications there in Foxborough, said there was one more question, but Bill wasn't even having it. He just walked away. Your thoughts on that post game?
Yeah, sort of a continuation of what we talked about last week, where it's just more chicken bleep stuff out of Belichick. if he wanted to, if he was upfront, accountable, he could have had a discussion on Friday about this. He was offered the opportunity. He could have just come out. I mean, he said in his post-game press conference, yeah, I made the decision earlier in the week to start Zappe. So why not just say that?
Yeah.
We know why, because that would lead to the inevitable questions about, specifically, Bill, how did it get to this point with Mac? Second in offensive player of the year voting as a rookie to now he can't start an NFL game. How did it get here? And, God forbid the guy who's in charge of everything and gets paid $25 million a year can't answer simple questions like that or be accountable. And so good job it seemed like the two mics softened him up, a little jabs, left, right. And then Phil came in with the overhand right. And finally, it wore Bill down to the point where he was like, well, this isn't going away, so I have to answer it. I did think it was interesting that his answer, there were a few knows in there. It was like he wasn't prepared to answer the question, that he was just going to do the rope-a-dope Belichick thing, and then he finally decided, what the hell, I'll answer it, and he didn't have a good answer. Like, he was like, we all Mac did, that, like hemming and hawing, sort of like, me, but I think that this is what happens. These are the questions that get asked, and it's just unfortunate that, and of course he did the rope-a-dope, like, this isn't a season-ending, review or whatever, but he's not afraid to go on the radio on EEI and talk about the season that Jelani Tavai had or anything like that. But when it comes to Mac Jones and how he's completely broken, God, we can't talk about that, even though it's affecting the team and has affected the team all year. Like I said, just more chicken bleep stuff from Belichick. And like, if you want to spoon it up and eat it and, go Bill and, go at the media, fine. But, this is what you get. You get a 2-10 football team. You get no answers. You get the head honchos who's in charge of personnel and everything else, and the coaching staff, and where this team is, and he doesn't feel he has to answer any questions.
Just no accountability. And right before you and I started to record this, I did a live podcast with my pod, the Nick Cattle Show, and I thought, Greg, that the Greg Hill interview was embarrassing for Belichick. I thought the lack of accountability and some of his answers in that interview were just putrid. First of all, he starts with the, yeah, but we're close kind of stuff. Like, is 2-10 indicative of what kind of team you have? Oh, well, we're close. We played a lot of close games. That's what losing organizations say. That's what head coaches and GMs say to try to keep their jobs. And I watched that Greg Hill interview and listened to it and read about it. And I just felt that was a guy who was trying to get his ducks in a row for his postseason interview and discussion with Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft says, Bill, why the hell were we 3-14 or whatever? Yeah, but Robert, we were in a lot of close games. We were almost there. Bill, how about your wide receiver room? It's not a talent issue. It's a consistency issue. What? The wide receiver issues are consistency and not talent? Is this guy watching the same football team? I walk away from answers like that and what he does at the podium or doesn't do, and he's incapable of taking accountability. And we say it week after week, and he just keeps burying himself with this crap. I thought, I don't know about you, Greg, but I thought the Greg Hill interview was an embarrassment. I thought he sounded defeated. I thought he sounded like a guy who was trying to save his job. I thought he sounded like a guy who was desperate, trying to justify some of the terrible decisions he's made on the offensive side of the football. What say you?
So I didn't hear it, so I definitely take your word for it, Nick. You have a good ear for this stuff and have observed Belichick for a long time. I mean, I just think it's more the same in terms of in some parts of New England, because I do think, there's I would say a majority of the Patriots fans now are tired of this and ready to move on and ready for change, including probably many of our listeners on here who the realists, the people who look at the scoreboard and are real about things. I posed this question in our Felger and Maz email, and I don't know if we're going to get into it on the show today or not, but I said if you could not use anything before 2019 with Bill Belichick, what's your argument for why he should continue on? Why should they just keep the status quo? I mean, I don't think anybody who's real could come up, with a reason. And, I think that, Bill, the way he expects to be treated, to me, it's like, and I know that other people have said it in the past, but it's like, this is Penn State. It's Happy Valley with Joe Paterno in some sections in New England where, the guy can do no wrong. I just think that's unfortunate, but I do think a majority of Patriots fans look at the scoreboard, look at, I did it the other day. They are 29-40 since Thanksgiving of 2019.
Yeah.
29-40. I mean, anywhere else, this guy's out the door. There's no questions asked. And I understand, what he's done and what he means. And I do think that as far as Bill Belichick, a CEO, just coaching a football team, just in charge, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But when you start to lump in, he's going to want to pick his own assistant coaches. I think, to me, Nick, and I've had some discussions with this about people in the organization, around the organization. We talked a couple weeks ago. I've started to talk to a lot of people sort of about, where things went wrong, what's the end game here, and things like that.
Right.
I'm hearing more and more that, I do think that, and I don't know what Bill said about the talent specifically, but I do think that the vast majority of the problems with this team, or at least they would be around 500 or so, I think it's the coaching. I think it's the positional coaching specifically on offense, that even if you had the 2018, last time they won a Super Bowl, if you had those coaches, even Carmbersillo on the offensive line, Mick Lombardi at receiver, Josh McDaniels as offensive coordinator, Bo Hardigree, no, that might have been 21. But even the 21 staff, let's just go to the 21 staff, Josh McDaniels' staff. If you had that coaching staff with this group of players, I think it's way better than what it is. And Bill talks about the inconsistency with the receivers or what have you. Where do you think that comes from? It comes from coaching. Like that's where it comes from. It's not just in a vacuum that, we're just not consistent enough. Not consistent enough on the offensive line. The running back pass blocking has been horrid the last 2 weeks. The wide receivers, I actually thought they ran better routes this week, to tell you the truth. But to me, it's the coaching on this team. If you had the 21 staff on this team, I think this team is around 500, if not above.
The inability of Belichick to go outside of his circle. When he's lost a lot of coaches over the last several years, and he's just unwilling to go outside of his circle. And Greg, you wrote about the offensive coordinator, position the last couple of years, and how they got into Patricia and Judge, and now they're back to Bill O'Brien. And when you look at many of these other decisions, the offensive line coach, and who Bill, talked to about that job, it's his
Nobody.
BFFs. It's guys, it's guys that are just in his personal phone contact list. There's no going outside of those bubbles. It is what it is.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. I love the app. I use it all the time, all over the place. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Okay, time to get into Zappe, Greg. A lot of people want to talk about Bailey Zappe after Sunday. There was a lot of talk about the quarterback position before this Chargers game. Bailey Zappe, did it make a difference?
So, do I think Mac Jones and Bailey Zappe, where they are presently, do I think Bailey Zappe was better than Mac Jones in the present? Yes, absolutely. I think that he was slightly better. I think he made some plays, something that we haven't seen in a while from the quarterback position. I had him for 7+ plays in the game, including, I think it was 5 throws, some against pressure. He moved around the pocket well. But let's just say his first half was god-awful. Some of it was the play calling. It was extremely conservative. They opened it up a little bit more in the second half. But he also had a lot of issues in the second half as well with processing. I hate the deep ball shots. I absolve Zappe a little bit of that because I think it was beaten into him by Matt Patricia. I think Matt Patricia loved that stuff. He was like, yeah, let's go back to 1994 NFL passing offense where we just throw 50-50 balls down the field all day, 50-50 balls and checkdowns. Like that's offense. I mean, what year is this? And I think it's just like he sees that, but some of them were good throws. And look, the Tyquan Thornton pass, it's not quite a jump ball, but when you rely on the deep pass, it's about a 20% chance. That's what he was in the game. He was 1 for 5 on deep ball passes. That's 20%. I just don't think it's a way to run a modern offense. And I think that he had better options. When he was taking those deep shots to Devontae Parker along the sidelines, I thought he had better options that he passed up. And then also I just think he's, not only is Zappe limited in terms of his physical skills, like, he's small, the arm's okay, but it's not very good. It's not as good as Max, when Mac's not throwing off his back foot every pass. I think that Bailey processes slowly. I think that, he misses some things, and then I charged him for 2 half sacks and also 1 full sack, the one where he got sacked after 5 seconds. He had an opportunity. He had Juju Smith-Schuster and Jalen Reagor as possibilities on that play. He looked at the rush, and then he escaped the pocket. He still had a chance just to put it out in front of Juju, let him make a great catch, and he ends up getting sacked after 5 seconds. You can see Bill O'Brien on the coach's film, like, he was like, you got to be kidding me. At least throw the ball away. And so, he did some nice things. I like the way he moves in the pocket. He does a good job with that. I think part of that is he doesn't have the PTSD built up. He might after this game because I had a 50% pressure rate in this game, which I also factor in to how he played. But, the bottom line is my rating for him was minus about 12%. It's not winning football. It was better than 5 of Mac's starts, but it was worse than 6 of Jones's starts. So you're talking like a middling performance in a middling quarterback year for this team. You look at the team stats, the offensive expected points added was minus 13. It was the worst since the Saints game. The passing offense was minus 12 expected points added. Only the Giants game was worse since the New Orleans game. So, both the way it looked, it was a little bit better. I do think Zappe was a little bit better, but the bottom line is it's still not even close enough to play winning football.
The bar is so low that we're at the point that a quarterback can play slightly better than a completely broken quarterback, and it makes some people feel good. That's the reality of the situation. That's how dire the circumstances are. The bar is so low. This is a terrible defense, folks, that he played against on Sunday. The Chargers stink out loud defensively. So when you think about the context, and did he play better in the second half? I thought he played much better in the second half. I thought the first half he was awful. The first pass of the game, the slant to Devontae Parker behind him. Hunter Henry's wide open, throws it low and behind him. Ezekiel Elliott is wide ass open in the flat. He completely misses him. he was brutal in the first. I actually posted at Nick C Radio if you want to follow me. Ding. I actually posted that, and I meant this. It wasn't like just taking an unnecessary shot. It was a legitimate question. Watching that game in the first half, did he throw one accurate football? He might have thrown one or two passes accurately.
Yeah. I didn't have him for a plus throw. The only plus I had for the first half was a 5-yard scramble.
Everything was behind. Everything was low. Everything was late. So again, it's a low bar. It's a low bar. And I agree with you on the PTSD stuff. People, he looked less panicky than Mac did. I thought he still took a couple of sacks. He couldn't. The one that you brought up after 5 seconds is a brutal sack to take. But just give it time, folks. Give it time. Mm-hmm. Mac Jones, and this is not to defend Mac, okay? We all of us have to now drop that caveat when we talk about Mac Jones in the media. It's disgusting. We always have to say, this is not defending Mac. He didn't wake up broken. He didn't wake up and just say, oh, you know what? I'm going to just completely forget how to fundamentally play the quarterback position. It took time. Let Zappe run around for his life multiple times behind this offensive line, and we'll see what happens. Last thing on this offense, I wanted to actually before we get to that, the one more thing I wanted to ask you about. Do you continue with Zappe? I would imagine Zappe plays short week Thursday night.
Yeah, I think so. At least, I thought he played well enough, and there was enough that, that I want to see him get the opportunity to watch the film and make corrections and see how he does. I think he'll be better against the Steelers, against a much, much better defense. On the road, I think he'll be better. So I'm fine with it, but let's see how it looks against the Steelers. You get sort of the mini bye with the Thursday night game. If it's not appreciably better in this game, then I think you got to give a thought of going to Malik Cunningham, at least for a game or two, seeing what that looks like. If not Mac. I mean, I think that's too soon for Mac, but for now, yeah, I thought Bailey was fine enough to warrant going forward with him.
Let's look at the bigger picture with this offense. Bill O'Brien and the offense. And here's something else that I addressed today on my pod. You and I are usually on the same page when we talk about, what to address and what not to address here. Burt Breer, Sports Sunday. I know Burt's a close friend of yours, really good at what he does, has lots of sources in the building, pretty plugged in guy. Said on Sports Sunday with Felger that Belichick restricts O'Brien and that Belichick doesn't allow O'Brien to run the kind of offense that O'Brien wants to run. When you look at this, Greg, from 30,000 feet, how much of this is on Bill O'Brien, this offensive ineptitude?
So I think, not surprisingly, I think Bert and I talk to a lot of the same people, because I will say, so, in the wake, if you're not a BSJ member, and why not?
What are you doing?
For
Stop
Christmas?
Waiting.
I know.
Come on, let's go.
So my column off of the game on Sunday was basically, this has gotten so bad that the Krafts have to entertain a full reset. And, we'll either dive into that a little bit more deeply in this or, possibly next week. But, I heard from a bunch of people with the Patriots after my column posted, and they read it. And, I think some of it is job preservation. I think certainly that's natural. I don't fault them, and I'm not saying that they're wrong to say what they did, but there are a lot of people who are saying that O'Brien is being handcuffed by Belichick. And, I don't know how exactly that works. I'm looking, more into that. We'll see if anything, I get anything more, but there are a lot of people who think that Billy wanted to do a lot more with this offense, and we've seen it in flashes. It's hard for me to say that's true, because I know specifically the way Bill O'Brien looks at the game, from being behind the scenes with them when he was with the Texans, and how they put together their offensive game plan and things like that. And, and also, from observing and dealing with Josh McDaniels over the years, like, these guys as offensive coordinators, they are not going to call things. They're not going to put things in the game plan unless they have a very good reason and they feel very strongly that they'll be able to execute those plays. I just think that I do think that there is some element of Belichick saying, like, this is how we're going to play the game, and we're going to be very conservative, and we got to try to cut down on the turnover, so let's just take the air out of the ball, that sort of thing. But I also think there's an element that Billy looks at it and puts guardrails on himself, because he's just like, this offensive line stinks. The receivers can't run routes. The running backs can't pass protect. Like, I don't feel confident in anything. So, we have to go to a very conservative playbook. So it's hard for me to tell whether that's Belichick or O'Brien, but I do think there's a marriage of the two things. But I think the baseline of this offense and the problems, to me, is the offensive coaching staff. And I think that the positional coaching on the staff is terrible. And I think that Belichick made a huge blunder not letting Billy O'Brien just hire whoever he wanted to on offense, saying, Billy, you can do whatever you want to do. I think these guys are good, and this is why I like these guys. But if you want to make a change, go right ahead. And Belichick's, not doing that, as you illustrated earlier about how he doesn't go outside a 5-foot circle, basically, to get people to work for him. I think I think that's the biggest thing that's hurt this offense this year.
Dear Bill Belichick, stay the hell away from anything offensively with this football team. You believe that a one-legged Juju was an upgrade over Jacoby. You thought giving Devontae Parker an extension was a good idea. Stay away. I don't want you touching the offense. I don't want you sniffing the offense. I don't even want you watching the offense. When the offense is on the field, turn your back to the offense. Let Bill O'Brien handle it, please. If Belichick has 30% of what's going on here is 30% too much, stay away, please. And I do wonder, Greg, I wanted to ask you this. During camp, there was a lot of talk from you guys down there covering the beat about how things look different and how there were some fun things happening pre-snap. Yep. Mm-hmm. Did you see any of that actually translate into the regular season, or has most of that stuff just kind of stayed on the back burner because of what you're saying, that they can't get down the basics?
There was only one occasion, and maybe you remember the game. There was one game where they used a crap ton of motion.
Yeah.
And I forget which game it was. That was really the only game that has stood out. But my impression from training camp was, I didn't know how good they were going to be. And again, I picked them for 7-10, perfectly healthy. So I wasn't that high on things. But my impression from watching training camp and the joint practices was that I thought Billy O'Brien was going to marry the best parts of the old Patriots offense with what he learned in the college game. And that's a lot of what I saw this summer. And most of that has gone poof. But I think, a large portion of it has to do with the personnel that he has to deal with, that he doesn't feel strong that they're going to be able to execute much of anything. And again, because of the positional coaches.
And that was part of Burt's report, by the way, which is that, Bill O'Brien, a lot of the stuff that he's learned outside of the Gillette walls is the kind of stuff that he hasn't really been allowed to go out there and do. And so that's interesting reporting. As far as the hard reset, just one thing I'll say about this. I think it does make Gerard Mayo look much better as a prospective head coach, if it's not here, at least somewhere else, that this defense has bought in, that this defense is playing hard. They haven't always been great, but they continue to compete. And I don't know if you agree with me on this, Greg, but that does tell me that as far as Mayo relating to guys and getting guys to buy in and actually care, if I'm looking at this as Robert Kraft, I'm saying, hey, you know what? This season sucks. This defense has every reason to tap out and not care. But they're coming in and they're actually playing with, they're playing their ass off. They're playing hard. They're competing. And I think that does say a lot about Gerard, and it says some about Lil Belichick.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think that, just because of the points allowed that they've given up, whatever it is, 26 or something in the last 3 games. just because of the bottom line, I don't think that means that the defense is all world. I don't think that is indicative of the level of defense. I mean, I do think they've executed at a high level. I think that there's a lot of things that go into it, including I think the opponents realize we don't really have to do much. As long as we don't turn the ball over, we're going to win this game. We don't have to score many points, so we're not going to try. And I think that offense have been conservative. And plus, you also look at it. I mean, who was it? Gardner Minshew. Who was the other team that they beat or lost to during this?
Tommy DeVito.
Stretch.
Come on.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito, and then Justin Herbert with guys dropping balls all over the place, and then in a monsoon, with a crappy offensive line that couldn't get any push. I thought the Patriots defense did awesome against the run, but the Chargers stink up front, which we talked about going into the game. I think they've done a really good job. I don't think that they're, a lights out defense or anything like that, but there's no question. I think it was last week, if you took J.C. Jackson off of the field for the Patriots and all his errors against the Giants, I think that might have been like a perfect game by the defense in terms of execution. So I do think that's where coaching matters. That's where coaching comes in. And I think that the defensive coaches have done an excellent job. I just think with injuries and other things, they're just sort of limited into what their ceiling is.
We'll keep it to you. You're super quick 3 up from the Chargers game.
Christian Barmore, again, really nice job dominating inside. Jonathan Jones, I thought, was excellent in this game. And offensively, I'm going to go with I'm going to give one to David Andrews. I thought he was outstanding in the running game, one of his best games I've ever seen. As far as downs, Michael Wenu was freaking horrendous in this game.
Yeah.
He had to – I know there's an illness going through. Dietrich Wise was sick. Sean Wade had to tap out during the game with an illness. I'm going to give Big Mike the benefit of the doubt, because I've never seen him play that bad. He was awful in this game. And then also, let's see, Bailey Zappe was number 2. I mean, look, it wasn't bad, but I've had Mac as a 3 down all year. Basically the same sort of performance, other than Zappe didn't turn the ball over. He did almost have one interception in the game, one near interception towards the end. And then Trent Brown, he didn't play a ton in this game. I don't know how much is physical. I can only go off the film. And, right now it's sort of the annual rite of passage, which is trying to figure out Trent Brown's give a crap factor late in a Patriots season. It's a tradition unlike any other, Nick.
We should have like a meter, like a Trent Brown give a crap meter. All right, quick thoughts on the Steelers as we get ready for what I'm sure is going to be an exciting, incredible football game on Thursday night.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about their offense. I think it's bad. I don't think the Steelers will be able to run. They're going to try to put it on the Patriots will want to put it on Mitch Trubisky. If I were him, I would just run all the time. Like he did against the Patriots. He almost carried the Bears to a victory against the Patriots with his legs that one year, where the Bears were god awful. I mean, that's what they should do. Can you imagine if it was like if Malik Cunningham gets in the game, especially Trubisky and Malik Cunningham running like the single wing for both? I mean, they might as well. Let's throw it all the way back. The Steelers' defense is obviously very formidable, and if the Patriots get their type of tackle performance against the Steelers that they got against the Chargers, like holy hell, pray for Bailey Zappe. I mean, because you have T.J. Watt. I think he might be dealing with an injury. And then you have Alex Highsmith on the other side. And then the other thing is Cole Strange played really well in this game against the Chargers. Not a surprise, because the Chargers are undersized up front on the defensive interior. They seem to always be for years. And that's in Cole's wheelhouse. What's not in his wheelhouse is Hayward on the other side. These big, strong, physical defensive tackles. He has issues with that. So you combine Watt, Highsmith, and Hayward along with Minkah Fitzpatrick at safety. And I just feel bad for Bailey Zappe. he wanted to take Mac Jones's place. God bless him. He might be ruining that decision come sometime on Thursday night.
Just brutal. I think he ran for like 80 yards that game against the Patriots that we're talking about. I was just looking it up, some of his stats, his game logs. That's the Pats game I could find back in, I think it was 2018. All right, so check him out, of course, as we always say, over at BSJ, $50 for the year. Bedard, Giardi, all the rest of the team. Great coverage on all of the teams you could expect there. $50 a year, bostonsportsjournal.com. Also remind you this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. New customers receive $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. Let's get to the pick. Steelers -6 Thursday night in Pittsburgh. The over-under is a delicious 30.5. Greg, where are you going with this one?
30.5. Oh my God. This is basically akin to Rutgers in Iowa, which is like, shoot me in the face. That I have to watch this stuff. 6 is a lot for the Steelers. I guess they're expecting the Steelers to score on defense, which they tend to do. Like you said, what's sort of your line on the Patriots? You're like, I'm just going to pick against them. I don't know. I picked them to beat the Chargers.
I'm going to pick against them every week until they actually win a football game on the field.
Well, see, that's why you're wicked smart, and I'm a freaking idiot. This past week, not only did I pick the Patriots to win at the end of the day, I don't know if I did on the podcast, but for Sunday, I picked them to win, and I picked the over. How much of a freaking moron am I? 6-0. So I'm adopting. Look, I'm going with Nick. I'm sort of backing his play. I'm going. The Steelers are covering. It's going to be the under. I'd say, let's say, 16-6 or something like that for the Steelers.
This game is going to be an offensive explosion. You're going to have 50% more points total than we had this past weekend. So get ready for it. Steelers 9-0 on Thursday night. I'm going Steelers -6, well under the 30.5. I'm not picking this football team until they win on the field. I am now 6-6 against the spread. So I'm back even. So that's the pick. This game's going to suck. Unless something is just dramatic happens and a miracle breaks out in Pittsburgh. It's going to be terrible. But we'll be back to recap it, everybody. I'm sure it'll be fun. He's Greg. I'm Nick. Till then, be well.